Picture this. You're sitting at the kitchen table late at night. The house is finally quiet. The dishes are done, the TV is off. And across from you is a woman who might be kind, beautiful, even good to you, but something in your chest feels tight instead of calm. You thought getting close again would make the loneliness disappear. You thought love, or at least companionship, would make life feel softer, easier, more full. But instead, your mind keeps whispering things you don't want to say out loud. Why do I already feel pressure again? Why does this feel heavier than I expected? Am I looking for love, or just trying to outrun being alone? Do I really want marriage, or do I just miss being needed? Am I about to build another life I no longer have the energy to carry? Here's the truth most people never tell older men. The problem usually isn't that love found you too late. It's that marriage, at this stage of life, often asks you to give up the very peace you spent decades earning. And you're not broken for feeling that. You're not cynical, you're not selfish, and you're not failing at love. A lot of senior men don't need another wedding. They need honesty. They need clarity. They need to understand the difference between real connection and expensive emotional repetition. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the 5 biggest reasons remarriage can become a trap instead of a blessing, and what to look for before you hand your peace away. Let's get into it. Most people believe marriage is the natural, happy ending to love. Most couples grow up absorbing that script without even realizing it. If you find someone good, you marry them. If you love each other, you make it official. If you're older, you should feel lucky to get one more shot and lock it down before time runs out. But the real truth is deeper than that. Marriage is not just romance. It is structure. It is legal entanglement. It is emotional merging. It is routine, obligation, family systems, financial exposure, caregiving expectations, and unspoken roles coming back online. And your nervous system feels all of that before your mind can put it into words. That matters more than most people think. Because what looks like "I'm unsure about marriage" is often something much more intelligent beneath the surface. It is your body remembering the weight of responsibility. It is your history remembering the cost of conflict. It is your attachment system asking, will this relationship bring me safety? Or will it bring me another cycle I'll be stuck carrying? Here's the part no one talks about. When a man is younger, he often confuses endurance with love. He thinks if he can provide enough, tolerate enough, sacrifice enough, then the relationship is working. But later in life, that illusion starts to crack. You stop wanting intensity. You start valuing peace. You stop chasing appearances. You start asking whether the connection is actually real. Not another ceremony. Not another title. Not another performance of commitment. But something better. Clarity, peace, emotional honesty. A relationship that adds to your life instead of quietly draining it. And once you understand that, these 5 reasons start making a whole lot more sense. 1. Loneliness is not love. Most couples, and honestly most people in relationships, mistake relief for compatibility. They meet someone after loss, divorce, or years of isolation, and because the connection feels warm compared to the emptiness, they assume it must be right. But the nervous system will grab for closeness when it's starving, even if that closeness isn't truly safe, stable, or emotionally available. That's the deeper truth. A senior man is often not just choosing a partner. He is choosing what to do with grief, silence, aging, identity, and unspoken longing all at once. And when those needs pile up beneath the surface, companionship can feel like oxygen. But oxygen and compatibility are not the same thing, man. One soothes pain, the other supports peace. Here's what that looks like in real life. The disconnecting version sounds like this. I don't want to be alone anymore, so maybe this is enough. She's here, she cares. I should just move forward. The connecting version sounds more like this. I like her, but I need to slow down enough to know whether I feel calm with her or just distracted from my pain. I'm not going to let loneliness make the decision my clarity should make. And this is the one most couples never figure out. When a relationship begins as an escape hatch, it usually becomes a pressure chamber. Because sooner or later, his inner voice starts saying, I didn't choose this from peace, I chose it from fear. And once that thought appears, the walls begin going up. That's when love stops feeling like connection and starts feeling like a place you hid from yourself. 2. Marriage can turn peace into pressure. Most couples think marriage proves commitment. That making it official creates security, that once you put a ring on it, everything settles down and becomes more solid. But for many senior men, the real psychological experience is the exact opposite. The moment marriage enters the picture, what felt light starts feeling heavy. That is not random. Because marriage doesn't only bring closeness, it brings systems, it brings expectations, it brings financial risk, household power dynamics, inherited habits, legal exposure, and the quiet return of roles he may have spent years recovering from. And the nervous system notices the shift fast. What looked like love can suddenly feel like duty in a new outfit. But here's what nobody explains. A lot of older men are not afraid of intimacy. They're afraid of losing hard-earned peace. They've already lived through years of compromise without repair, years of walking on eggshells, years of being needed but not really known. So when remarriage starts to smell like obligation again, something in him goes withdrawn before he can even explain why. Not fear of women, not fear of closeness, not fear of commitment itself. Fear of returning to a life where peace always comes second. Look at the contrast. The disconnecting version sounds like this. She says if I really love her, I'll marry her. And he says, maybe you're right. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. The connecting version sounds like this. She matters to me, but I'm not going to promise a structure that creates pressure where we currently have presence. And he says, I want connection with you. I just don't want to build something that quietly makes us resent each other. Here's the internal monologue almost nobody says out loud. I finally got my life simple again. I can't go back to constant emotional management. And when he honors that truth instead of overriding it, he stops treating his peace like something selfish. He starts treating it like something sacred. And that's the shift that turns a relationship from another burden to carry into something that can actually feel real. 3. Unhealed grief always enters the marriage too. Here's the part no one talks about. Most people in relationships think a new partner means a new beginning. Clean slate, fresh energy, a second chance. But the real truth is that grief does not disappear just because somebody new arrives. It simply changes rooms. And if a senior man hasn't fully faced what he lost, a wife, a divorce, a version of himself, years he can't get back, that unspoken ache will sit at the table in the next marriage too. That's why this gets so complicated. What looks like devotion can actually be comparison. What looks like caution can actually be unresolved pain. He may care deeply for the woman in front of him, but part of his nervous system is still in conversation with the past, still measuring, still bracing, still protecting scar tissue beneath the surface that never got true repair. Grief is strange like that. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it shows up as distance. Sometimes it sounds like, I just need space. When really, the inner voice is saying, I don't know if I can survive losing this again. Now watch the contrast. The disconnecting version sounds like this. She says, why do you shut down when things get serious? And he says, nothing's wrong, I'm fine. The connecting version sounds like this. She says, I feel you pulling away. And he says, I think some old pain gets activated when things start feeling permanent. I'm not rejecting you. I'm realizing I still have grief in me. That sentence changes everything. Because now she isn't standing in front of a wall wondering what she did. Now she's standing in front of a real man being honest about what still hurts. And when that happens, she feels less confused, he feels less trapped. They feel less like opponents and more like two people finally naming what was already running the room. And that kind of honesty can save you from turning old pain into a brand new contract. 4. Family, money, and caregiving change the emotional equation. Most couples focus on chemistry. They focus on affection, companionship, shared routines, and whether they enjoy being together. But in later life relationships, that is only one layer of the story. Because remarriage is not just about two people. It often pulls children, estates, caregiving expectations, health decisions, and legacy fears into the relationship, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. And this is where it gets really interesting. A lot of conflict in senior remarriage isn't about romance at all. It's about invisible pressure. It's about adult children feeling threatened. It's about one partner quietly wondering, will I be expected to care for him? It's about him wondering, will my family think I'm replacing their mother? It's about money carrying emotional meaning far beyond dollars. Protection, fairness, guilt, power, fear. Most couples underestimate that. Then they pay for it later, emotionally, financially, relationally. Because your nervous system does not separate love from consequence. If a man senses that marriage could create family fractures, legal stress, or caregiving confusion, he won't experience the relationship as simple romance anymore. He'll experience it as a system he may one day be trapped inside. Here's the contrast in actual language. The disconnecting version sounds like this. Let's not overthink it. We love each other. The rest will work itself out. And then, 6 months later, resentment is everywhere because nothing was actually clear. The connecting version sounds like this. I care about you enough to talk through the hard parts before they become the painful parts. What happens if one of us gets sick? How do we protect both families? What expectations are unspoken right now? This isn't cold. This isn't unromantic. This isn't a legal hack pretending to be love. This is what emotionally mature people do when they understand that real connection needs structure that protects everyone involved. And when you do that, the relationship stops feeling like a gamble and starts feeling like a place where trust can actually breathe. 5. Companionship does not always need a contract. And here's what changes everything. Most people still act like the only serious form of love is marriage. If you don't remarry, they assume you're guarded, afraid, damaged, or only half committed. But that belief is deeply outdated. Because at a certain stage of life, the highest form of connection may not be merging everything. It may be choosing each other clearly, consistently, and lovingly without forcing the relationship into a structure that no longer fits. That is a massive identity shift. A senior man does not have to prove love by recreating the same container that exhausted him before. He can be loyal without remarrying. He can be devoted without combining every account. He can be emotionally available without handing over his autonomy. And she can feel chosen without needing paperwork to make the connection real. That matters. Because marriage is not the only path to depth. Presence is depth. Honesty is depth. Turning toward each other is depth. Repair is depth. Two people building something intentional without pretending they need to follow somebody else's script, that is depth too. Watch the difference. The disconnecting version sounds like this. If we're serious, we have to get married. Otherwise, what are we even doing? And now both people are negotiating fear more than they are building connection. The connecting version sounds like this. We can create something loving, stable, and real without forcing it into a form that costs more than it gives. We don't need a performance of closeness. We need a relationship that actually feels safe to live inside.